Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game gameplay, custom/replica track gameplay on the channel today. Today we are playing the 2019 Oakland Supercross replica track. Just built this one in game, designed it, tried to do the best I can to replicate the real track, of course, and this is what came out of it. Couple things that are obviously things I couldn't replicate. No sand in Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game 1. So there's no sand after this quote-unquote wall jump, which is basically just a backwards tabletop that I built. So there's just a couple rollers. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, there's also no like step tabletop jump coming across the start straight. You may have noticed I just jumped like the entire thing over the start straight. That's basically because there's no step table that I could have built that would work there, so I had to put a dragon's back. So theoretically speaking, in the real life race, what they were doing is coming up to this jump and jumping to here and then singling down into here and then going inside, double this and then triple, you know, you get the gist from there. So anyway, I mean, I did what I could. I think it's somewhat close, a little bit off. Obviously the start straight is a little bit wrong too. But that's because there's not long enough start straights in Monster Energy Supercross 1. Anyway, it is time break down into some real life discussion. That's what I do in these videos every week, where play the track, talk about the real life race, and we're gonna recap the Oakland Supercross a little bit. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, about to break some news to y'all. Turn it off if you don't want to hear, or if you've already seen it and you want to hear, you can leave it on. All right, let's start off with the 450 class this week. And the man himself, Cooper Webb, proved himself that his victory was worthy at the third round at Anaheim last week. Mentioned in the video that I did last week about how, like, well, you know, we saw Wilson crushed it at A1 but didn't really follow it up since then. I mean, he's been good, but he hasn't really been like race win speed per se since A1. And then obviously Barsha won, and he's had his issues since A1. And then Baggett won at Glendale, and then immediately followed it up with 14th at A2. So it's like these kind of hit and miss rides out of the first two winners of the season. So when Webb came around and won the third round, I was kind of like, okay, you know, he's good. He looks strong. Definitely championship possible contender if he can keep that up. But I was skeptical of it because the other two guys had just won basically their first races. For Barsha, first race in a while. Baggett, first race ever in the 450 class. So I was skeptical of them, and that's why I, you know, held Webb to kind of the same standard as I did about them. And look at that, Webb backs it up, wins this weekend. I mean, I think the thing that I can point to the best about Webb right now is the starts are freaking killer. I mean, he's really good at Anaheim, but yeah, he whole shot his heat race and was leading until he stalled it, and then Savachi won the heat. Then whole shot the main, and he was just leading the whole thing. Like, you know, I think that he's plenty good enough to, you know, start 10th and ride up to that group in some form. Maybe not win races from 10th, but, you know, at least be top 5 at this point if he starts 10th and not just sit in 10th like he kind of did at Glendale. I think his confidence is starting to, you know, pick up a little bit. He believes he can win these things again, so he's back to that kind of Cooper Webb level we saw on a 250. But yeah, definitely a good start helped. He had Marvin tailing him. Marvin makes a mistake, slides out of a corner. And then it was really weird. Like, the beginning part of the race, it seemed as though Kenny and Eli coming from mediocre starts. Roxon was about 6th or 7th off the start. Tomac about 12th or 11th or so. Coming from those starts, were actually like the guys making the biggest charge and like kind of closing it up pretty early on there. To the point where everybody was sort of condensing into each other a little bit. Savachi had a good start and he was running up front. And it looked like we were set for, like, as the race moved into the second half, Kenny and Eli were going to charge forward and challenge the two KTM guys. Then Marvin fell, and then I think right after Marvin fell is when Savachi's bike finally blew up, which, by the way, Kawasaki, what in the F? Like, how is it that both your bikes are smoking in the heat race, very clearly struggling? Sure, they won the heat race, so, like, you know, good job. The bikes lasted the heat race, but there's no way that you're watching the bikes smoke in the heat race and you're like, this is fine. It's like that meme of that dog sitting in the like kitchen or whatever, and everything's on fire, and he's just drinking a cup of coffee saying this is fine. Like, that's what it looks like Kawasaki did, because the bikes came out in the main event, and 2 laps in the main, Tomac and Savacci's bike both smoking again. And I'm sitting there like, come on, like, there's no way that either bike's gonna finish the race if this is what's happening early on. They're already smoking. I thought it was kind of ridiculous, really. But anyway, Savacci's bike blows up, seizes, and comes to a complete stop, and he's obviously devastated because he's having, you know, he's finally like kind of showing what he's capable of doing, and having like his best ride of the season pretty much right there. And then the bike blows up, and I mean, that just, you know, sucks. But I really thought once Savacci's bike let go, I was like, yep, Tomac's not finishing this race either, because his bike, I mean, it wasn't a ton of smoke. It wasn't like it was plumes of smoke coming out, but neither was Savacci, and then his bike blew up. And then you could see Tomac, it was notably when he would like exit the first set of whoops and was entering the second set, it was like, because they had shifted up to 3rd or 4th gear, whichever gear he was in, and he was lugging the bike, that something was going wrong, which made me think it was the clutch, because obviously they have to kind of drag the clutch out of those corners before the whoops to get, you know, at least a decent drive into him, and then use the 3rd or 4th gear to lug the bike through him. Thought it had something to do with the clutch. I mean, Kawasaki's obviously not going to tell us, so maybe it was something with the clutch with Savacci, but I really did at the time think there's no way Tomac's going to finish this race. Like, Savacci's bike let go so early that I just didn't think it was going to happen. But I also was wondering whether or not they would like tell Tomac maybe like lay off the clutch or, you know, whatever, and I never saw the pit boards to confirm this, but it did seem like as the race moved into the second half, that's when Tomac's kind of hit a wall. Like, the Tomac speed that he was showing at the beginning of the race, you know, went to kind of like a stalemate. It was right about the time that Musquin got back around, you know, Tomac and Roczen both. Like, he made passes on them pretty much at the same time. And then as that was all going on, Baggett was coming from nowhere and passing them as well. And like, not sure what was going on with Roczen. I don't think it was a bike problem, but he seemed like he was just suddenly like not himself either, and kind of struggling with pace or something. You know, I don't know what was going on with Roczen. With Tomac, I really felt it was something more to do with the bike than anything wrong with Eli himself, just because of the pace he was running near the beginning. But it's just such a weird race that, like, you know, Marvin falls, he ends up behind those guys, then passes them both. And I'm not making like excuses for Eli or Kenny. I think that Marvin was actually faster than both of them once he got going again. Like, he was definitely the best guy on the track for the last 8 or 9 laps, and it showed because he was 10 seconds down about on Webb and caught him before the end. And you know, Eli and Kenny both kind of fell back a little ways, and then Baggett was just kind of all alone in third by the end. But I do really think that it had, you know, Kenny and Eli both had something going on. I don't know what it was with Kenny. Definitely a bike issue for Eli, but I don't know. I just felt that those were going to be the 2 guys that charged forward and put the challenge to the leaders late in the race, and then it just kind of stalled out. It's such a weird season that we're having, because things like that keep happening, like where you're just like, as soon as you think something is happening, or I guess in my case, as soon as I think something is happening, the opposite happens. Like, I really did think when Eli got up into 6th and he was not too far off of Cooper leading, I was like, man, Eli could probably win this thing. Like, we've seen it before where Tomac comes from like nowhere and just steals the win late. So why not? Why can't Eli win this thing? So yeah, weird 450 race. I'm not really sure like if that really answered any questions for me moving forward. Said that about every round, that I don't feel like I've got any questions answered. The biggest question that it answered for me was that I think Webb is for real. I do truly believe that on some level he's going to be in this championship fight going forward. Whether or not he continues to back it up with race victories, I'm still a little skeptical about, just because like I didn't feel that overall he was like the fastest guy on the night. He just, you know, made do with a great start, and he rode fantastic, like no discredit to him. You know, he definitely put the money where it was meant to go. You know, like he was riding his butt off for the beginning to keep Marvin behind him, and then rode a smart race at the end to keep him as well. But I felt at least, and I could be wrong, that Marvin, Eli, and Kenny were both actually riding better than Cooper. And, you know, the cards fell that Marvin fell, and then Kenny and Eli ran into their issues of some kind. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Cooper's not going to win races from here on. I think that he's definitely going to win more races. and take this thing into some sort of title fight. He obviously has a points lead, so why not? But I have to think that you still put the now big three with Anderson missing. They're ahead of them just a little bit. You know, if Webb starts going on a winning streak and everything like that, at this point, I will not be surprised. Like, I'm not going to be, like, blown away that Webb wins for the next 5 or something like that, because Webb has always been kind of a confidence rider anyway. Like, when he was feeling it on a 250F, he was super dangerous and won a lot, whereas now, like, he's got his mojo going on a 450, feels comfortable on the KTM with training with Baker and everything like that. And I mean, this is all the makings for Webb to turn into, you know, a superstar moving forward for the next 5-6 years in the 450 class. So huge move for DeCoster. Tweeted that after the race, that anytime Roger DeCoster says, oh, I see something in that guy, gotta listen, because despite Webb having some immense struggles in the 450 class on the Yamaha, DeCoster still said, nope, I believe in him enough, let's sign him to 2 years. And I mean, I know that was in part Ian Harrison's decision, because Ian Harrison runs, you know, Red Bull KTM North America now, but you know, I'd have to say that DeCoster still had some input there. And obviously Webb let them know that's where he wanted to go, and so far it's working out fantastic. Back-to-back weeks, Red Bull KTM 1-2. Baggett puts it up on the podium to make it a KTM podium sweep. I mean, it's just, things are really flowing for the whole KTM crew right now. And by the way, good for Baggett too as a rebound week, to kind of struggle at A1, win Glendale, then superly bad struggle at A2, and then put it back up on the podium this week. Baggett's riding style to me is very interesting. When I'm watching him and he's riding really well, he looks like he's like putting in zero effort. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but when he's riding really well, like, he's not like scrubbing the crap out of everything and like trying to soak up jumps really gnarly or anything. He sends it in the whoops, which is good, because like the guys that send it in the whoops usually do pretty well, and Baggett's done pretty well at a couple rounds. So, but you know, like you see when Marvin, Eli, Kenny, Barsha, Anderson, just anybody except Baggett, I feel like when they're really feeling it and they're starting to put pressure on someone, it's just scrub every jump. Like, they're just trying to stay as low as they can. They're charging hard, and Baggett looks like he's just like putting in motos out there, and he's hauling butt. Like, clearly he was making passes on guys, but he didn't look like, you know, like he didn't have this look about him that he's like, oh my god, you see Blake Baggett just like literally scrub the face off that triple? Holy bejesus, he's hauling. Like, that doesn't happen with Blake. It's kind of a weird enigma about him, I guess. He's got the old man style because of the bald head, I guess. I don't really know. But, you know, good for Blake getting back up there, getting back in the mix. Big shout out to Barsha, too. Holy crap, with a bruised tailbone coming out there, finishing, what, he got 7th? That's huge. You know, championship-wise, he salvaged points. He's still really, really close in the championship. I think 11 down. The top 4 in the 450 class are separated by 4 points right now. It's insane. Like, they're just all so close that it's, who the heck knows what's going to happen moving forward. At this point, Marvin, Eli, Kenny, or Cooper, if any one of them just like next weekend win and then just go bang, 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 obviously it'd probably be like Tomac that we'd expect that from. But if any of them do that, I'm not going to be like overly shocked at all. Totally could see any one of them just like taking this series by the reins and running. In fact, I would say the person who I least feel confident in that right now is Roxon, because every time he seemingly looks like he's the best guy on the track, he just turns into a shell of himself. Whereas, like, as soon as Eli remembers his name is Eli Tomac, he starts hauling butt and ripping. And I would say that maybe the best actual rider these past couple weeks has been Marvin. Like, Marvin has looked tremendous these last couple weeks, to the point where in the main event, he kind of looked uncomfortable jumping through the whoops and went back to blitzing them, and he wasn't losing time. Like, that's a big step for Marvin to be able to do something like that. So, man, this championship is wide flipping open, and we still haven't had our big 3 win a race yet. I'm shocked as a guy that came into this season saying Yep, just going to be, you know, Marv and Eli, Roxon, Anderson. They're just going to win all the races this year, no biggie. And yet none of them have won. We're coming up to round 5. Color me shocked, that is for sure. So yeah, 450 class, super interesting. I don't even know. I don't know what to say about it anymore because every week something new happens and I'm just like, huh, well, what? Yeah, super awesome, super fun. And the 250 class. Let's talk about 250 class a little bit. So every time you think Adam Cianciarulo is down and he's gone back to old AC, which is just like have many freakouts and crash a bunch, he comes out and he's like, "No, guys, it's okay, we're good." Which I don't know if I necessarily would say that that's exactly what happened this weekend, because the first 5 minutes of the 250 main, I thought Adam Cianciarulo was gonna die. He was so crazy. He was all over the place. He was crazy in the whoops. Every single lap he went through the whoops, it was like a new adventure, like looping out, swapping, going too high in the corners. Just like every lap, it was something different. And he kept it on 2 wheels to his credit, and he seemed to like calm down and relax a little bit, which was a good thing because AC's normal tempo when things are getting tight for the lead is freak out and yard sale, and he didn't do that. So, you know, maybe he has learned, as he keeps saying in these press conferences, how to tone himself down. But boy, last week didn't really dispel that rumor. He just crashed a bunch of times and then didn't get a good finish, 5th place. So he's gone 5-1, 5-1, and he sits 3 points down to Nichols and 2nd in the championship. So I guess he's in a pretty good spot, but I don't know. AC has been pretty weird these first couple rounds, that's for sure. And then, yeah, I felt pretty confident that Ferrandis was going to get his first career win. The big thing that I thought would deter that was the start, and of course Ferrandis is literally the only guy of the front 4 in the championship that did not get a start at Oakland, but he came from pretty decently far back and got pretty darn close to winning the race still. So, you know, I felt like that was a pretty safe bet that not only Ferrandis was going to be the fastest guy this weekend, but I really had a good inclination that he's going to win. And it didn't happen. I mean, he's got to win one of these things sooner or later because he's been so damn fast. Like, he's been one of the best, if not the best guys week in and week out, and he just can't find the winner's circle. But, I mean, that being said, the same thing you could say for AC about he's had a hectic couple of weeks, but he's right there in the championship. I mean, Ferrandis hasn't won a race, but he's been on the podium 3 out of the 4 times, and he's right there in the championship. So, you know, doesn't necessarily need to have a win to get this thing, you know, close or started or whatever, but I'm sure in his case he's just like desperate at this point, being here for his 3rd year and been so close to wins before, that he's just like, this has got to happen sooner or later, surely. And I think it will. I think it's going to come sooner or later that he'll pick up a win. Nichols has been steady, which is good because, you know, when Nichols doesn't have big, you know, crazy crashes or anything like that, he's been super fast in the past, but this time he looks like he's been able to kind of like get within his own head and settle down a little bit when he's flying and doesn't need to be. You know, he's got the championship lead, he's held it since the first round, he's been consistent, he's been on the podium every week, so you really can't like expect much more out of Nichols this year, but he has looked like he's like slowly fallen back to like the 3rd fastest guy at best, I would say. You know, I still think AC and Ferrandis have him covered on raw speed, and clearly they beat him at Oakland. McElrath has been so weird this season, like was great at Anaheim too, kind of just like normal at the first 2, and by normal I mean fantastic because he gets on the podium, but I mean like not crazy speed Shane McElrath-ness level. And so, you know, I would put Nichols like about on par in terms of like speed and consistency as far as McElrath. It's just that McElrath hasn't put it together more often than Nichols. Nichols seems like he's getting good starts, which McElrath seems to be up and down with, or if he gets a good start, he kind of just struggles to be there. And then Nichols has been really good about pushing early on in the race, which I feel like McElrath hasn't. McElrath's like strength has been just being consistent and doing the same lap over and over again. But at the beginning of the race, you kind of have to throw caution to the wind to either win or stay up with that front group. Because when AC was trying to get away and Nichols was putting the pressure on him, that's when AC started making mistakes, and it looked as though like Nichols might have a legitimate shot at still winning the race because of how much pressure he was putting on AC. That's kind of what I feel like McElrath has to start doing, is get a start and then push those guys, run with them. I mean, he has a win, so he knows how to get it done. It's just he seems like kind of folds up a little bit early on and then slowly gets into a groove later in the race, but by that point it's too late because they're already too far ahead. You know, I don't know. It's just he's got to figure it out, I feel like, sooner or later. Maybe it's a good thing that he hasn't, like, you know, been the guy to start with, because he was the 2 years previously, and I think some of that pressure carried with him, you know, over the break, which they're about to have after San Diego, for example. You know, he would carry that pressure with him knowing he's in a championship hunt. He had the red plate, I believe, in 17 when they left San Diego. So I think that maybe it's a little good thing that he's still close but doesn't have the lead, so he's still kind of like the aggressor of the series and doesn't have to defend necessarily, because that seems like when he would start kind of making a lot of big mistakes late in the series, especially in 2017 with some crashes. But 2018 he just looked like he folded up and then obviously had a mechanical. But I still think he's right there. I think kind of like the 450 class, there's, I believe, 5 points separating your top four right now. Nichols 3 ahead of AC, and then 1 point separating Ferrandis and then McElrath behind him. So it's really anybody's race in this 250 class, and just like the 450 class, any one of those four guys steps up to the plate and starts like crushing it and, you know, winning consistently. AC maybe has the biggest potential for that, but there's a lot of question marks with him. But if any of them do it, I'm not going to be surprised, because they've been so good this year on numerous occasions. All of them have a win except Ferrandis, and I feel like Ferrandis is probably the guy that should have won a lot of these races already because of how good he's looked. So, I mean, you know, good for AC, kind of figure it out, keep the championship hopes alive in his sake, and keep this thing moving forward. I don't know what in the heck is going to happen at San Diego, because at least as far as I've seen, the weather forecast has rain starting Thursday and not stopping till the Tuesday following, so we're pretty much going to be set up for another nice mud fest this coming weekend. And I mean, Nichols was great at A1, but was it really a mud fest? It was kind of more of just like damp fest. Like, the track was moist and got slick in some spots, but for the most part I felt like it was still a pretty sensible and rideable track, and those guys were doing big lines. The way it looks on the forecast, we could be in for, you know, tiptoeing our Jordans around the track kind of weekend. So hopefully not. Hopefully the track stays somewhat dry and we have a decent race, but I don't know. If rain's supposed to start Thursday and not stop till like the following Tuesday, it's probably going to be raining. So we'll have to see. I'm excited about it because I'm going again. Going to be at San Diego this weekend, and probably get down there early. So if you guys are going, let me know, and we can meet up. Be a good time, hang out with you guys. Going to go out to eat and all that good stuff downtown, and have a lovely time in my hometown race of San Diego. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to try out this track, it is called SYS_Oakland_19 on the PC. Getting ever closer to the release date for Monster Energy Supercross 2, so once that game comes out, we'll switch over to that game in terms of doing videos like these. But right now, having fun doing this, and again, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, let us know, and we'll see you guys in the next one, I guess. So long for now.